our school Istanbul campus. So today I'm here with the new Maya. So our today's my topic is teach me something about self-discipline. So let's start our today's Maya. First of all, call the Maya for some questions.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, so Maya, my first question from you is how can self-discipline help a person stay focused on long-term goals even when motivation disappears? Please give me very interesting answer on this topic. So let's start your answer, Maya. I'm waiting for your interesting answer. So let's start your answer.
So you're basically asking how self-discipline is the magic ingredient for consistency in all areas of life, right? And what happens when it vanishes. Here's the thing. People treat discipline like this rigid, punishing force, but it's more about designing your life so that doing the right thing becomes the easiest thing. Think of it as choice architecture, not willpower battles. You don't need insane levels of force. You need to structure things to nudge you in the right direction. For long-term health, for example, instead of, I'm going to go to the gym, which feels like work, it's, I'll put my gym clothes out the night before and put them right by the bed. Sudden barrier is gone. You literally can't miss them. Similarly, don't try to overhaul your diet overnight. That fails 99% of the time. Instead, replace one sugary drink with water or add a single serving of vegetables to each meal. Momentum builds gradually without this huge psychological resistance. So what causes discipline to disappear? Usually it's either overwhelm or confusion about goals. People try to change too much at once. The emotional toll crushes their will. Or they don't actually know what they want and therefore have zero motivation for staying focused on an actual goal. You need clarity and realistic expectations, then momentum kicks in pretty naturally.
Okay, so Maya, my next question from you is why is self-discipline considered more powerful and than temporary motivation in achieving success? Please give me very interesting answer on these topics. Let's start.
That's a fantastic question. It's something a lot of people get wrong. Motivation is amazing for starting things, absolutely. That initial jolt of enthusiasm gets you to sign up for that gym membership or start reading that book, but motivation is fickle. It's like a wave. It comes and goes with the mood, stress levels, whether you had a good night's sleep. Self-discipline, on the other hand, is what keeps you moving when motivation has completely evaporated. Imagine motivation as gas in your car. You need it to get going, but the engine has to keep running even when you're driving uphill. That's discipline. And here's where people miscalculate the real payoff. Self-discipline builds resilience. Every time you stick to a commitment when you don't feel like it, you strengthen that mental muscle. Failure becomes less painful. The shoulds feel less oppressive. You don't become some stoic robot who never enjoys anything. You just become someone who doesn't let temporary emotional states control the trajectory of your life. Success really comes down to what you do consistently, not what you do sporadically. Motivation fades, discipline compounds.
Okay, so Maya, my next question from you is how does practicing discipline daily slowly shape a person's character and identity? Please give me very interesting answer on this topic. So let's start your answer.
This gets at something really deep. How our daily habits aren't just about outcomes. They're literally building who we think we are. Think of discipline as a sculptor, and you're the clay. Every small, deliberate choice chips away at the old version and reveals something new underneath. When you regularly do things you said you'd do, even when nobody is watching, you're proving something to yourself. It's not just, I can complete this task. It's, I am the type of person who follows through, who keeps promises to themselves. That internal narrative is incredibly powerful. Over time, that's how character emerges. It's not some abstract quality. It's a pattern of consistent behavior that starts to feel inseparable from who you are. And identity is even deeper, how we see ourselves fundamentally. If you consistently prioritize health, you start to think of yourself as someone who values their body. If you stick to learning, you internalize that I'm a curious person rather than I should probably read more. It's subtle, but massive. Self discipline rewrites your story. You go from trying to become disciplined to simply being someone who is. And once that shift happens, everything feels different because you're no longer wrestling with the fundamental mismatch between intention and behavior. You're living as who you believe yourself to be.
Okay, so Maya, my next question from you is that what mental barriers usually stop people from building strong self-discipline? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic. So let's start your answer, Maya. I'm waiting for your interesting answer.
Okay, I think what you're getting at here is whether you're meant to stay disciplined if there are real barriers in the way. Let's break this down. You're right to recognize that sometimes life throws things at us that make self discipline feel insufficient or even pointless. Like if you're dealing with depression, chronic illness, systemic discrimination, or overwhelming financial stress, just try harder doesn't cut it. Here's the key difference. Discipline isn't about ignoring real hardship. It's about how you navigate it. When faced with legitimate barriers, the question becomes, what's within my control right now? Maybe the huge goal of running a marathon is impossible right now, but can you manage a 15-minute walk? Maybe you can't change systemic injustice overnight, but can you educate yourself about it or volunteer in small ways? Discipline transforms from achieving outcomes to maintaining agency. It's the ability to make small, deliberate choices, even when the world feels out of control, to say, I will take care of what I can today, given what I'm dealing with. And those choices aren't just about productivity, they can be self compassion. Sometimes discipline means knowing when to pause, when to ask for help, and when to simply be kind to yourself. It's adapting the approach without abandoning the fundamental principles of intentionality and consistency.
Okay, so Maya, my next question from you is that how does delayed gratification improve future success and decision making ability? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic. So let's start your answer, Maya.
Okay, this is a big one. Delayed gratification is like the master key to unlocking, well, pretty much everything good. The connection between being able to resist immediate pleasures for longer term rewards and success isn't just some moral observation, it's actually wired into our brains. Neuroscientists have shown that people who are better at delayed gratification have more prefrontal cortex activity, which is the part of your brain responsible for planning, goal setting, reasoning, and impulse control. So, literally, practicing that skill strengthens the brain regions critical for success. Think about it evolutionarily. Our ancestors who couldn't delay gratification, who ate all the berries instead of saving some for later, didn't thrive as well as those who could make long term plans. And that same wiring still runs in our brains today. Here's where it ties to CN making ability. CN stands for creative thinking, right? But really great creative ideas don't happen when you're chasing quick wins and validation. They need extended concentration, experimentation, tolerance of discomfort, all of which demand the ability to sacrifice immediate gratification. Most creative endeavors, learning an instrument, writing a book, launching a business, require years of persistent work before you get any visible payoff. If you can't delay that dopamine hit, if you need constant reinforcement, you'll get discouraged and probably switch to something easier. So, really, delayed gratification becomes a superpower, enabling you to navigate complexity, embrace failure as learning, and stick with things long enough for true, original ideas to mature. Are you still there?
Okay, So
No worries if you need a moment to process
Maya,
everything we've been
my
talking
next
about.
question.
Just
Hello.
let me know when you're ready to
Maya, my next
continue.
question from you is that how why do people often choose comfort or progress decide knowing the consequences? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic. So let's start the answer, Maya.
This is such a core human struggle. We know what's good for us, but comfort is so tempting. The simple answer is fear of discomfort, failure, uncertainty. Progress inherently means stepping into the unknown, pushing past what feels safe and predictable. Comfort stays within defined boundaries where the risk is low. The human brain is hardwired to avoid threat and seek pleasure. That's survival programming. But progress often requires choosing discomfort intentionally, which throws your brain into internal conflict. What also happens a lot is something called present bias. We heavily prioritize immediate rewards over future consequences. So the Netflix binge feels amazing right now, but the future you who's behind on work, they're far less tangible. People also get caught in habit loops. We choose comfort because it's familiar, it's automatic, even if it's not actually serving us. The key to breaking that cycle isn't willpower, it's reframing. Instead of thinking about comfort as safe, recognize that it can actually become its own form of threat, stagnation, regret, unfulfilled potential. A lot of it is about building identity. If you genuinely see yourself as someone who prioritizes growth, making the harder choice feels less like sacrifice and more like living authentically. And here's a brutal truth. Most people overestimate the immediate cost of progress and underestimate the long-term pain of comfort.
Okay. So Maya,
Everything okay? You've been
my
quiet for
next
a bit?
question from you is how can students develop self-discipline to improve academic performance consistency? So please give me.
Okay, so students, huh? Perfect timing. This isn't about suddenly becoming some productivity machine. It's about setting up systems that quietly support consistency. The biggest mistake students make is treating learning like this massive monolithic task. Study history is overwhelming. Read 10 pages of history, then take a 5-minute break is manageable. Break everything down into incredibly small steps. That's the key. Timing is everything too. Find when you're most alert, whether it's early morning or later in the day. Your brain isn't this blank slate that can absorb information anytime. You have natural cycles. But here's where it goes beyond pure scheduling. Build reward systems into the structure, not just as treats at the end. Like if I get through this chapter, I can listen to my favorite song during my break. Make the reward tied directly to the effort, not the grade. And then this is huge. Eliminate distractions ruthlessly. This is not about lecturing on social media. Phones aren't evil. It's about making your study space a dedicated zone where learning is the only option. Put the phone in another room. Close unnecessary browser tabs. Tell your family you're focusing for an hour. And crucially, embrace boredom. The attention span isn't this fragile thing that needs constant stimulation. It's actually getting stronger when you resist the urge to check your phone every 2 minutes. Your brain adapts. It wants to find more meaningful ways to focus once you remove all these shallow distractions. It's like training a muscle. Consistency is more important than intensity. Take your time. No pressure to rush.
So, Maya, my next question from you is
I'm here
that
whenever you're ready.
how does
Maybe you're
emotional control strengthen our health and self-discipline in difficult situations? Please give me my interesting answer.
This is honestly profound. It's not about suppressing feelings, it's about actually building this incredible inner resilience. Here's what most people get wrong. Emotional control isn't ice cold detachment. It's about recognizing that emotions are signals, not dictators. Anger doesn't mean I have to lash out. Sadness doesn't mean I need to collapse. It means something feels wrong. Let's figure out what's really happening. The first step is developing that brief pause, the space between feeling an emotion and reacting on it. That split second allows you to choose your response instead of being hijacked by automatic patterns. Now, this is where it gets wild. When you practice emotional control, you're literally rewiring your brain. When you consistently respond calmly to stress instead of panicking, you're strengthening prefrontal cortex pathways while weakening amygdala reactivity. That's the brain area involved in fight or flight. So the more you practice managing emotions, the easier it becomes. Here's how this connects to health. Uncontrolled emotional states create physiological stress, hormone imbalances, weakened immune system, chronic inflammation. Emotional control acts as a buffer, helping regulate those systems. This impacts everything from sleep quality to digestion to immune function. And in difficult situations, emotional control lets you focus when panic would normally shut down your brain. You can assess what's actually happening versus what you're assuming. You can problem solve instead of spiraling in negativity. It's about seeing challenge as something that needs solutions, not a personal attack that requires emotional reactions. Long term, this becomes this incredible feedback loop. Better emotions create better choices, which strengthens emotional regulation, which creates better health, and so on.
Okay, so Maya, my next question
Are
from
you
you
still
is
there?
why
No
is
rush at all.
consistency more important than intensity and when building disciplined habits? Please give me interesting answer on this topic.
You're hitting on a really important point here. Consistency trumps intensity every single time when building discipline. Look, intensity gets you excited to start something. You might work out crazy hard for the first week, then burn out. Consistency means you show up even when you don't feel like it, but you pace yourself so you can keep going. It's the difference between sprinting and running a marathon. Sprinting gets you nowhere if you can't repeat it day after day. When you build habits through consistency, it's like compounding interest. Small increments build to massive results over time. Discipline isn't about being perfect or doing everything at once. It's just doing a little bit every day. And honestly, building discipline is about building a system. So you don't rely on motivation. So if you can consistently show up with a sustainable commitment of 20 minutes of exercise, writing, or self care instead of exhausting yourself with a 2 hour session, you're already making headway. That slow, consistent buildup allows you to develop psychological comfort. It strengthens your identity as the kind of person who keeps promises. That consistency becomes this automatic habit you no longer have to think about, then it can keep moving towards goals, even on your worst days.
Okay, so Maya, my next question from you is how can someone rebuild self-discipline after repeated failures? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic.
Okay, first of all, everyone fails at this. Everyone. Repeated failures don't mean you're broken or defective, they mean you're human. The real trick isn't avoiding failure, it's becoming more resilient to it. Here's what to do. The first step is radical self compassion, like truly accepting you're not perfect and beating yourself up just makes it harder next time. We tend to turn those setbacks into this huge identity crisis. I'm lazy, I'm undisciplined, but that's just not helpful. It's one failure, not a character flaw. Then come to terms with the truth that every skill you have started from incompetence and frustration. You learned to drive by crashing several times. Your writing was terrible when you started learning to write. And all the people who are good at the things you want to do failed first, too. Second, don't throw away the whole system. When you mess up your habit you've already set up, reset immediately. Don't wait till the next morning. The idea isn't to never slip up, it's to get back on track and keep making. Was the task too big? Timing off? The environment too distracting? You gotta be a detective about this. Fourth, when you find what went wrong, make sure there is no shame in asking for support. If you slip up or if life throws something at you and you have to make adjustments, don't be afraid to tell trusted friends or family members about your goals, so they'll be more supportive when you get back on track. Last, recognize that discipline isn't about being relentless. You can schedule some deliberate rest days. Consistent self-discipline takes energy, so you need to know when to step back, recharge, and adjust the program. Still
Okay,
with me, or
so
just
my
processing.
my next question
Take your
from you
time.
is, how does waking up early contribute to stronger personal discipline? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic. So let's.
Okay, so waking up early, it's not about becoming a morning person. It's about the ripple effect it has on everything else. Most people think getting up early means getting more done, which is true, but it's actually the mindset it builds. When you wake up before the rest of the world, you seize control of your day instead of being reactive to everything that gets thrown at you. You have uninterrupted time to focus on what matters most to you instead of falling into emails, meetings, or social media. Here's the domino effect, though. That sense of control spills over into other areas of your life. You're more likely to tackle tough tasks that you've been avoiding because you're already proving to yourself that you don't need to wait for motivation. You can just take action. And honestly, most morning routines aren't revolutionary. It's consistent, small habits that strengthen discipline. Maybe it's writing one page in a journal, 10 minutes of meditation, or exercise. It's about starting with one small win that builds momentum for the entire day. The downside, the first weeks are brutal. You feel tired, irritable, less focused. But that's exactly where discipline gets built. Pushing through the discomfort when you don't feel like it, sticking with it even when you're failing. And eventually that resistance fades away and your body and mind adjust, which trains you that discipline isn't about being naturally motivated. It's about creating commitment even when everything inside of you is protesting it.
Okay, so my next question from you is that question from you is, how can setting this deadlines improve some discipline and productivity? So please give me interesting answer on this topic. So
Deadlines are incredible. They're one of the most effective ways to kickstart action when you might otherwise drift, but most people set deadlines wrong and then wonder why they don't work. Here's what they need to get right. Deadlines aren't about motivation, they're about making choices inevitable. The goal isn't to inspire yourself to work harder, it's to create a structure where not working isn't an option. The deadline forces your brain to prioritize and allocate resources differently. It creates a sense of urgency that cuts through procrastination. Instead of saying, I'll write this essay sometime next week, say, I'm submitting the first draft by Friday evening. That's a concrete commitment. The key is to be realistic. Deadlines that are too ambitious just lead to anxiety and burnout. Break big tasks into smaller, manageable steps with their own micro deadlines. Instead of finish the report, it's research background info by Monday, write the introduction by Wednesday, draft body paragraphs by Friday. The micro deadlines maintain momentum without feeling overwhelming. Finally, make the deadlines public if you can. Telling someone else about your goal creates accountability. Knowing that you have to explain what happened if you miss it gives you this extra incentive to follow through. This way, it's not just about self-discipline. It's adding in external pressure that forces action.
That's really great. So, Maya, my next question from you is how does discipline help in solving problems effectively? Please give me answer on this question. So let's start your answer.
Discipline is almost invisible when things are going smoothly, but it becomes absolutely critical when you hit unexpected obstacles. Here's how. Discipline trains you to focus on what you can control when everything feels chaotic. Panic tends to narrow your attention, and people start spiraling around what's happening instead of moving forward. With discipline, you can maintain presence and assess a problem systematically. Disciplined people are less likely to make rash emotional decisions because they've built the mental resilience to withstand short-term discomfort. They approach solutions deliberately rather than reacting impulsively. It strengthens your ability to tolerate ambiguity. Problems rarely come with clear paths forward, and discipline enables you to stay with uncertainty instead of needing instant clarity. Disciplined thinking means being willing to break down problems into smaller, manageable parts. Those who let discipline fade often avoid problem solving because it seems daunting. The disciplined mindset makes you think, okay, this is complicated. Let me start with step one first. And here's what most people miss. Discipline actually creates space for more creative solutions. You're better able to focus when you're not constantly distracted. You have more mental. I'm
Okay.
sorry, could you repeat that?
So
I'm
it
not
was
sure I caught what you said.
this was our Maya.
The audio
Yes,
got a
Maya.
little
I hope you
garbled
like
there.
it. I met with the new